Yeah.
Shua Tov, everyone. Chaim and Bracha. Today we are celebrating and connecting to. Today we are celebrating and connecting to the great, incredible Tzaddik, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Riminov. Usually, I get excited. I start high, then I go through the roof. Everyone should be blessed with all of the big blessings, all the big blessings. Chaim. Amen. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us in this very, very, very awesome special event.
Yeah. I said, yeah. Yes, I'm sorry. You're right.
Oh, yeah, it is last. Good. Let me click it over. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, cool. Station break. Start meeting. Promo. Put one in your promo. For excellent judicial advice for Yaakov. Don't forget, when you do really well, God willing.
No, that will be one slide.
Okay.
I always say, hope you never did it. But you do up here. So I always say, hope you never did it. But you do up here.
What time are your pleasures? You're going to save some pizza maybe. Yeah? You want me? Salo, hi. This is what private you want. Questions? Yeah. Welcome to Shiva. Something you want to what?
Want some drink or not drink with them?
No, just want to make sure that people are lubricated for tonight. When Moshe starts singing, people really can grab the drinks right away. Say that they go to the bar. This is like music from Shemaiah.
You're making the expectations too high.
This man is a musician. He's a name of Moshe Bitton. Bitton.
I know.
He's a good guy.
I really love that you're only pulling your strings today.
He's originally from Kerala, Venezuela. He's a very talented man. He works at a school with children.
They're coming today, by the way.
What?
We're bringing the boys today.
Are you?
They're coming, yeah.
Oh, wow. McGill,
Okay, L'chaim, everyone. L'chaim and Bracha. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Thank you for joining us. Tonight we're celebrating. Tonight we're celebrating the great Tzaddik, Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Riminov. Although usually during the winter months we have our special series of lives of Tzadikim Melaveh Malkas. Usually we connect to a tzaddik whose yahrzeit is in that particular month. The Rebbe of Riminov, Rabbi Menachem, he's known as Rabbi Mendel of Riminov. His yahrzeit is not in the month of Cheshvan. So yahrzeit actually is in the other part of the year. His yard site is a day after Lag Boimer. His yard site is Yud Tes Iyar. Why, therefore, why are we celebrating or talking about this tzaddik? Simply because, as I'm looking through the early tzaddikim, every year as I go through the cycle, we've done the more popular ones, the ones that are, meaning the ones that we want to speak about, just because they are the pillars of Chassidus. That's what I would like to speak about, the pillars of Chassidus. Although there are many tzaddikim that are probably we could speak about, but those are tzaddikim of the lesser known ones, and I wanted to speak more first about the pillars. But we keep on doing only the same 6 months. So all the tzaddikim who passed away in the summer months, we never get to them. And because in the summer, it's very late, Matzah Shabbos, and it's hard to make a Melaveh Malka. So we don't do these Melaveh Malkas on those Matzah Shabbos. So I came up with a Hamtzah, being that in Chassidus it says that the 6 months of the winter parallel the 6 months of the summer, and they sit side by side, correspond to each other. In that sense, Tishrei and Nisan are parallel to each other. Cheshvan and Iyar are the two sister months. So we will now be following tzaddikim, very big tzaddikim, that we have never spoken about, like the Chayda from Lublin, whose yard site is on Tisha B'Av. So we do it in the month of Av, but we can't do it in the month of Av. So we do it in the month of Shvat. Shvat and Av are sisters. So it works, the 6 months line up with the other 6 months. So it turns out that being that right now we're in the month of Cheshvan, and not only that, Erev Shabbos was the 18th, Erev Shabbos was the 19th of Cheshvan. And his yard site is the 19th of Iyar. And we know that Shabbos is Misha Tarach Be'erev Shabbos, Eichel B'Shabbos. Erev Shabbos is mamish the energy and feeds into Shabbos. So we're actually, by that cheshbon, we're actually tapping into his yard site. We're tapping into this great tzaddik. In Poland, it was known that since most of the Yidden who lived in Poland could not go to Reb Shimon Bar Yochai's kever on Lag Boimer, which is the 18th of Iyar, couldn't go to his kever to go to the Tzion of Reb Shirashki. Those who were lucky to go. The lucky ones were able to go to Meron, but those that were not lucky were not able to go. I mean, most people couldn't. So who would they go to? Some would go to Warsaw. They would go to the Ramah. Moshe Isilish is the author of the Shulchan Aruch. His yard site is also on Lag Boimer. But most of the Hasidim would travel to Riminov, to the burial site of the great tzaddik Mendel, because of his energies of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai that were in these holy tzaddikim. So the Mendel of Riminov, if I have to say, Reb Chaim of Tzan said, the holy Reb Chaim of Tzan said as follows: the Eibishter took his Shem Havaya. Hashem took his. It's a type of word that you read in Chassidus as well. You know, Chassidim got in trouble when they said a word like this. But this is what Reb Chaim of Tzan said: that the Eibishter took his Shem Havaya, his Shem Yud Kei Vav Kei, and dressed it up in the body of the Mendel of him. To say something like that on a tzaddik, you know, talking about Mam Pnei Adam Darash Bi. Talking about people that were pure godliness. Their entire being was godliness. And Mendel of Riminov is the father of the entire Chassidus of Galicia. It was known the Melech of Luzensk had 3 primary Talmidim, or some say 4. 4 great Talmidim were Rabbi Melech of Luzensk, who became the Rebbe of all of Poland, of all the Polish Rebbeim. So the Melech of Luzensk had 4 primary Talmidim. The Cardinal Tzemagin, the Chayzev from Lublin, the Seer from Lublin, the Mendel. These were the 4 Talmidim, the 4 grand Talmidim of the Melech of Luzensk, and from them came the entire flow of Chassidus that took over all of Poland. It is known that the Melech said, the Melech gave to his 4 Talmidim were as follows. To the Chayzer from Lublin, he gave his eyes. That's why the Chayzer was called the seer. You can see he had incredible vision. So who did he receive it from? He received it from Rabbi Melech. He gave him his eyes. To the Karjnitzer Magid, he gave his heart. Karjnitzer Magid was the heart of Rabbi Melech of Luzensk. To the Abderov, he gave his mouth, his koyach hadibur, his power of speech. And to the Mendel of Riminov, he gave the neshama that's in his moach. That's what it says. The neshama, so you're talking about like such incredible level of holiness. Holy the Mendel of Riminov. Very, very, very high. Very, very high. So I'll begin and we'll sing a niggin first as a hachana for this story. I'll tell you a fabulous story that I mentioned that I read today. It was so exciting that I couldn't put the book down. It's a really, really, really amazing story. But I'll share that Be'ezus Hashem after we sing the niggin. And then we'll go and we'll tell the story of his life from the beginning. First we'll sing
I shared the story about the mikveh this morning.
Yeah. First word I heard was Rabbi. Connecting in the Holy Rebbe. So just to share with you, I will tell a story that the Tzemach Tzedek himself related about the Mendel of Riminov, as a Hashem a little later. But for the Chabadnikim over here, we need always to check out. We need a stamp, a Chabad stamp on the tzaddik that we're talking about. With the Mendel of Riminov, we have a really good stamp. The Mendel of Riminov, the Tzemach Tzedek, this story was told by a Yid, something Margolis, who lived in Eretz Yisrael, who was a real tzaddik. And he lived in Yerushalayim back probably over 100 years ago. He heard this story from his name, I forgot the name of his, from someone Chaikim, or heard it from the Rav of Chevron, Reb Shimon something, who was the Chabad Rav in Chevron. Shimon, I think, something, I forgot his last name. He was a Chabad Chassid of Chevron, who he himself related what happened to him when he was in Lubavitch. He was in Lubavitch one day and they were sitting Chassidim outside and they were telling stories. Somehow they were speaking about different tzadikim. They were talking about tzadikim and they were telling stories. And suddenly the Tzemach Tzedek walked out. The Tzemach Tzedek said, "From which tzaddik are you talking about?" He said, "We're talking about the Mendel of Riminov." And they had a small candle on the table. And they were talking, they had a little pabrengen. They had a small candle on the table. So Tzemach Tzedek said, "Oh, you're talking about the Mendel of Riminov, you have to light a lot of candles." Because the Mendel of Riminov was a tzaddik amiti. He was a real tzaddik. And the Tzemach Tzedek told the story. That story I'm going to tell a little later. First, I'd like to share with you a really, really, really stunning story. The Mendel of Riminov had a Meshadis, a young man who worked for him. He was literally the shamus in the house, the person who brought in the groceries, the person who would sit around the Mendel's room. He would, get him his cup of tea, bring him his slippers, take him to the mikveh, bring him back, bring him forward. He called it a hoizbach. His name was Rabbi Hershel of Riminov. This Mishamish of his became the next Rebbe, became the successor after him. He had two sons, and they were tzadikim. The sons did not continue the dynasty. It was his Mishamish B'Kodesh. Because this person was a tzaddik Elyon. He was an incredible tzaddik. And the Mendel chose him to be his Mishamish. And the Chodev of Lublin sent him a message. He said, "How is it that you're being Mishamish B'Kodesh? You're being Mishamish with holiness, with pure holiness." He said, "Oh, I davened for this very, very much, that I should have a Mishamish." One time someone else made his bed and he didn't want to go to sleep on the bed. He would prepare his bed, he would prepare everything for him. He was, anyways, he was an extraordinary holy neshama. And then he became the Rebbe of all the Rebbes, his Mishamish. But he listened to the story.
It's like 2 years.
Yeah. Like Yeshua. His name was actually Yeshua also. His name was Yeshua Heschel HaKoyen. In any case, when he came to after talking the Istalkos of the Mendel of Riminov, and there were big tzadikim there that wanted to take his place. That they were like big people. This is the Chover of Akhtibos in the Chover. He's talking about big tzadikim who wanted to take his place of Shimon of Yaroslav, another great tzaddik. And they were all kind of suggesting that they should be the next candidates. The Chassidim decided they're going to go ask the Uri of Strelsk, who was close to them. They went to see him, and they brought him along, Herschel with him. And when he came inside, he was machabed with crazy kibbut. And even though he was just a shabbos, And they said, well, he says, I see written on his head, Yeshua Mesharsai Loi Mashmi Toich HaOil. Yeshua Mesharsai never left the oil. So they knew that this is it. In any case, so he was a bacher, but he was a very, very hatzna that everybody thought he was mamash and shamas, just a simple oil bacher, a guy who's good to bring the negel vasser, pour out the negel vasser, that kind of as simple can be, not showing anything of any kind of spiritual greatness. This was this Reb Hershel of Mesharis. In any case, he was a bacher. Ad Kedei Kach was simple. He used to be a tailor. He somehow made it into the Rebbe's play. The Rebbe saw him and made him his house bacher. And fine. But he was so simple. And he was, there was no sugar for him. He was getting old. He was an older bacher. And there was no one's suggestion for a sugar. And Mendel was very, very bothered. How come this student of his doesn't have a sugar? And he was trying to find him a girl. And no one really was interested. No one was interested. And I saw he made attempts, I hit, and didn't go. He's getting older, and Mendel was bothered by it. So then Mendel decided that he's going to go up there and check things out. So he went up there, and he checked it out. He found out exactly who his zivug was. After Mendel found out who the zivug of his Mesharis, his chassid was, his attending was, he stopped doing shidduchim. He stopped seeking. He stopped speaking to people. He stopped speaking to shadchan. Everything changed. After they he reached the point that people were wondering about it. Why is he not doing anything? People asked him. So and he was quiet. One day, in the middle of the works, there were people in the house in front of other people. Then Mendel turns to Reb Hershel and starts yelling at him. He says, "You got what you are. You see what you are. I can't stand it anymore. Since I know you, you've been stealing from me. And I'm not going to handle this anymore. Get out of here." And it was public. He threw him out of the house. I mean, everybody knew this Mesharis to be a very fine young man. Simple, very simple, poor, simple, not too charismatic, a simple guy. So now, accuse him to be a god. But everybody knew that Mendel is tzaddik, and he doesn't get angry, and he's not, and he calls him a god. He must be a taka, a real god. So when he threw him out, he was out in the streets, and no one was going to invite him. No one was going to pay attention to him. Everybody rejects people yelling at him on the street. It was gefahrlich, and he didn't know what to do. He's out in the street. He threw him. He doesn't know. He lost his job. So he's moving around. He realizes he can't stay in Riminov. So he leaves, walking. He leaves the town, starts moving out, walking. And it was freezing cold. It was a blizzard. There was a snow. It was like terrible. And he didn't even have any really proper clothing. He was frozen. He was making his way. Suddenly, a wagon drives by, and the guy had Rachmanis, and the guy looked like he was freezing to death. So he said to him, "Where do you need a ride? What do you want to go to?" So he said, there was a known inn. There was an important inn. There was an important inn that wasn't too far. So there was an important inn that was this story is so important that the more guys coming in. Okay, I'm going to repeat the first few points of the story so that you get to hear the story. Then you don't lose the story, because this is not such a short story, but it's worth listening. I'm going to repeat this little part. The Mendel of Riminov, the straight tzaddik, had a shamus. Shamus was a bacher who really was a very big tzaddik, an extremely big tzaddik. He became his successor. He became the Rebbe after him. But at that time, no one knew that he wasn't anything special. He was mamish just like, he looked to be a very, very simple guy. And there was no shidduch for him. He was getting older. No one was paying attention because he was poor, and he looked to be a klutz and a very simple guy. So, and Mendel of Riminov was trying to get him a shidduch. And he made all kinds of, and no one was interested. In the end, he went up there, and he checked out the book of Shidduchim, and he found out who his zivug was, and then he stopped bothering about Shidduchim. It's only a few months later, or whatever, a while later, he suddenly yelled at him in front of people that he's a ganef and he doesn't want him anymore in his house, and he kicked him out of the house. So this Bacher Nebuch, the whole community heard it. He's a ganef. So he was a thief. So everybody rejected it. He had no more place in the Riminov. Because in Riminov, the Rebbe, the Mendel was everything. And when he rejected it, threw him out, he knew that he had to pick himself up and find himself somewhere else. So he left. It was a freezing cold day. So as he's walking, finally a carriage stops another Yid. He sees this guy, looks like he's freezing to death. He took him into the garage, asked him where he wants to go. He said he wants to go to that and that inn. Because the inn, was known. There was a restaurant, there was food. So he takes him there a couple of miles, maybe 10, 15 miles down. He drops him off at the inn. He comes in. Happened to be the inn was closed already. It was in the late afternoon towards evening. That day, it wasn't closed yet, but he came on in. But that day, the owner of the inn was out of town because he went to go resupply at Costco. That was the Costco day. He went into town to the big super place to fill in with all the needs that the inn needs. The Kretschmann needs food and so on and so forth. Some extra big, locks and stuff that he needs for the mashke and all the stuff. He went. This was a shopping day, so he was out for a day or two, and the only one that was there was the innkeeper's wife, and they had a daughter. Fine. And so they see it looks frozen, it looks cold. They asked him if he wants something to eat, they want something to drink. So he says, yeah, I'm freezing, I can use something to eat, I'm hungry. He says, but I'll tell you the truth, I can't pay you because I don't have a penny in my name. I can't pay you. They said, okay, no worries, but Achnas was also a thing. So they sat him down, they brought him a little cake, a little tea, a little something, and warmed him, gave him to sit down, sat down next to the furnace. He warmed himself a little bit, and he was eating fine. And he got up and he's sitting there and he's feeling Baruch Hashem. So then the lady comes over to him. She says to him, so what do you plan on doing now? It's getting late. We got to close the inn. What's your plan? Do you plan on having a room for the night over here? Do you plan on staying in the inn? Or are you planning to go further to another city, to another town? Are you planning to maybe stay by one of the people in the community? There's a little village over there. There are other people. Maybe you stay. He says, I don't know anybody in the village. I don't know anybody in the next town. I would love to stay at the inn, but I can't pay it because I don't have any money. So you know what? If you do me a big favor, and now I can't leave because it's cold blizzard. It's at night. I can't. If you do me a favor, you let me sleep on top of the oven over here next to the furnace. I'll keep warm. And tomorrow morning, I'm going to leave. He said, Gesundheit, hey, that's fine. So, now, you should know like this. Where we live, the inn is one building. Behind it is the house. We live in the house. When you're going to stay in the inn, I'm going to lock the door. Sometimes people come at night to the inn. I don't know. Sometimes it's a merchant passing by. They want to come. If you hear knock, we're going to lock the door. We're going to give you the key. If people knock on the door, they said, make sure, don't open. Because we don't let anybody in at night. Whatever, hooligan, shikar, the drunken peasants, we don't want it inside of the inn. And sometimes it's important people that can pay and so on. So what you're going to do is, if you hear knocking and you wake up and you come knock on our door, and we'll wake us up, and then we'll come and we'll see. And I know already who to let in and not to let in. Good deal. They leave. Now that no one's inside, he's davening Maidav. The Maidav is ready. He's davening already. He's very happy. Baruch Hashem has a place to stay the night. And he's davening with a lot of dveikus, because as I mentioned earlier, he was like an extraordinary hidden tzaddik. He was a great man. And he started davening, so he really Maidav. After he finished Maidav, they left him some dinner. He ate, said Kriya Shema, and he used to wake up every night by Chatzos and do Tikkun Chatzos and learn whatever he would even do. But again, he looks like the most simple little bachar. He lays down on the thing, he falls asleep. 2 hours later, he's banging on the door, banging, jumps up. He didn't get enough rest, but gets up. And he remembers, goes to the door, who is it? And they start talking to him, and it turns out nice bunch of Jews. And it seemed like a whole big caravan. Like 30 guys. And they're telling him, listen here, we came back from that and that fair. There was a big what is it called, market. And we need a place to stay. And we got lost. In the snow, it's cold, we got lost. Please open up. And we're going to fine. We just need a place. We need some food. We need a place to rest for the night. Tomorrow we'll be leaving. Please open up. He says, okay, wait, I got to go check. So he goes and he knocks on the door, wakes up the family. They come out. She, of course, invites the guests in. She brings them in and they tell her that they're coming from this place. They, Baruch Hashem, they did very well business. It was very good for them. They're all in a very happy mood. Baruch Hashem, they found an inn. And they said to her, please get the ovens rolling, get us food, we're hungry. And this was a known restaurant. So she gets busy with her daughter and they start rolling out whatever. And first they give them, some mashke, some vodka, some chayim, and then they give them a cake, and then they start bringing out other foods. Meanwhile, he goes off to the side and he goes back to sleep. He's tired. So he goes off to the other side room like with this, and he's trying to sleep. They are sitting there and they're excited and they're very, very noisy to watch. And they're talking. And suddenly someone says, listen, we had such a good day. And take a look at us. We arrived over here, Baruch Hashem, the Jewish here. There's such good dancing over here. They were feeding them. There's good fresh hot pitas, good hummus, and all good zachen. They're enjoying the whole situation. They said, this is mama, it's wonderful. Look at the age. We could have been stuck somewhere, real the freezing night, frozen to death. Let's dance. So they go and they start dancing. And for a while, and then they sit down again and they're eating and they're dancing. Okay? And people are asking for more food. Right? She's bringing out. Then suddenly he gets up because it's Tikkun Chatzos time, it's 12 o'clock at night. He gets up and he wants to, they see suddenly a bacher there. So they turn to him and they say, who are you? And they get a look at him. They said to him, no, maybe you want to come join us. You can eat with us. He said, no, I ate already, I'm fine. No, come. They said, you know what, we're dancing. So, and they said, they realized a bacher like that, he's such a tamim, he's such a tamimistic guy, he's a perfect guy to grab into the dancing. They get him in, they'll get some more simcha with him. They felt he looked like such a tamimistic guy that he would be perfect. And he's the guy they would dance with. All right. So he had no choice. They schlepped him into the dancing. And when suddenly one of them says, he says, why is Tama dancing over here? We're going to make Frela. They said, what do you mean you're going to make Frela? We have a bacher, he says. Really dancing, let's make. He said, let's we'll make a mak wedding. I don't know, there'll be a reason to be Masilcha. We'll make a mak wedding. And they said, with what? What do you mean? He said, find a bacher over here. You see the girl that's working over there. We'll make a martial wedding so that we really get into it. So they were real drunk. The girls, they wouldn't have said this. They were a little high. So one of them goes over to the mother and said, listen here, we really want to make like really freilich. How about you, you are the bucket here. There's a girl here. We're gonna make a chasana. And guess what? You're gonna come and cook for us. We're gonna make literally a wedding. And it's gonna be worth it for you because we're gonna pay for an entire wedding here. And we're gonna dance and we're gonna make, and you'll make a killing in your inn. More money than you ever made for a long time because we're paying for this wedding. Now the girl, you have to understand, the girl and the mother were very, very, very simple people. Okay, they owned an inn. They were very, very simple people. They didn't understand much, and they just thought it's cute and it's funny. They're not going to make a little wedding. Shiny thought it was interesting, so he was master. They come to him and they say it to him, and he right away understood that this was what Mendel was doing. His Rebbe was pushing this whole thing. He knew that he's pulling the strings. So he immediately was masking to this wedding that they should do. He agreed. So they set up. She said, we ran out over here. We ran out. They said, wait. Said, what do you need? We'll cook, we'll bake, we'll. She said, well, I have flour, but I can't make challah here. I'm going to stop making challah now. They said, no problem. Amongst our family, two of the guys own a bakery. Two of the guys are bakers. So the bakers, give them just the dough, give them the flour, get out the big kneading doughs, they're going to get on the house. Then they asked her, do you have any chicken, any birds? Do you have any birds that we can? She says, I have actually chickens and goose and geese. But she said, the shaykhit lives a couple of miles away. We won't be able to get him here today. And we ran out of the meats in the freezer. There's no more. We can't throw anything on in the barbecue anymore. Garnish some Menachem. So they said, no problem. We have a shaykhit amongst us. Bring out. So they bring out the chickens. They bring out the things. This guy gets the busy. He's shechting. He cleaned the chickens. Literally, this was like the most incredible guys. Two of them were baking the challahs. The other ones were shechting the chickens. They handed it to them, to the mother and the girl, and we got the kitchen going and everything. Finally, after about 2 hours of preparation, it's 2 a.m. already. Guys, I need you to concentrate on the story. It's the craziest story you've ever heard. So they make this. They get this whole. 2 hours later. It smells. There's fresh challahs. There's meats and chickens and everything is cooking. And it's a machayim. And they say, okay, time for the chuppah. Time to get machana chuppah. They put together. They found a piece of velvet. They put together. They found 4 sticks. They put it up, and they said, "Listen, we're going to make this real." So they sat down. They got his name. They got her name. And one of them was a shtickle yad ksubas. He sat down and he wrote a ksuba. They got 2 witnesses who signed ksuba and everything. Then they went and they made a badekin. The guy went to this girl and he put her up. And then they went to the chuppah. And by the chuppah, some of them one guy was a merchant and a jeweler. He took out a ring. He gave it to him. He said, this is the ring, but you be Mekadosher. So they go under the chuppah. They stood there with the brachas. Again, they were all a little high. And they made the brachas. And they made the whole situation. And he said, the tabasu kedas Moshe v'Yisrael. And Fartik. And then, Mazel Tov, and the Sheva brachas began. Here's the Simchas Chassid Mekala. It went till about 5 in the morning. The dancing and dancing and dancing. And the weddings. They were tired. The mother and the daughter were tired. By the time 5 o'clock, the guys left. Everybody left, but they had to leave already in the morning. They suddenly said, it's morning already. Our families will be waiting for us. They have to leave. They left. The family, the mother, was tired to clean up the mess. The place was all messy. He went back to his oven to catch a little bit more rest. To get a little bit more. The chassan went off to take a little nap. She went to sleep. The mother and the daughter went back to the house. And of course, it was going to be a late morning because they were up all night. Comes the morning, the man, the owner of the inn, comes back. And he sees it's already 10 a.m. There are Gentiles standing out there. The doors are locked. And usually his inn is open for 7 in the morning because people come for coffee. And one of the main business is morning business. So he's getting upset. How come his wife and his daughter, remember the Mishigas, 10 o'clock in the morning, and there's a bunch of business, and they're seeing they're losing business. He's frustrated. Oh, I forgot to say, they laid out cash. And they managed to pay for the whole thing. A lot of money. It was like a kill. That night, they made more money than they had made because they ordered so many dishes. This was like, a caterer's dream. They cleaned out the entire place. And so now, in the morning, he's banging. Meanwhile, what happens is, he had woken up and he started davening. And when he was davening Shachris, again, no one was there. And again, it's a messy room just. And he's davening on the side and he's davening B'Dveikus. He's like manish lost, and he literally did not hear all the banging that was banging because he was so lost in his davening. Eric God, he manish didn't hear. The owner of the place is banging, so he goes quickly, bang, makes sure to get to the house. He's still outside the gate, he didn't have the key or whatever. He's banging. He wakes his wife up. She comes running out, and she says, and he's a little upset. What's going on? She says, "Oh, don't worry, we had a crazy night last night in Baruch Hashem." Anyways, he comes in and he says, "What's happening?" He sees this guy, this bacher, standing over there davening. He tries to say something to him, but he doesn't answer him because he's lost. And he says, "What's going on?" Anyways, so they say, "Yeah, guys, a whole chevra came last night, and they made a whole meal, and they ordered a lot of food, and there was dancing, and it was beautiful." All right, he's happy, and they said to him, that the man, and they showed him what he made, and he was also very happy. So they're all sitting there happy. Finally, this bacher finishes davening. He comes in and he sees that the father is there. So he comes over, his new father-in-law, And he comes over and he says, "Oh, shalom aleichem," whatever, and mazel tov. So the guy looks and he says, "Mazel tov, what's mazel tov?" He looks at it. They start laughing. The wife and the daughter start laughing. Yeah, we had fun last night. What's the shit? He said, "Yeah, they decided to make a mock wedding." She said, "What?" And the daughter jumps up and she says, "Hey, take a look." She points her finger and she shows the ring that she's got on her finger the wedding. So the father said, "Oh," he was a little bit more sophisticated. He says, "Tell me the story of what happened over here. What's the story?" They said they wanted to make a wedding. They wanted to be freilich, that this bacher was here. So I told that he's going to be the chassan. They went on the chuppah, and we sang, and we made a ksubah, and they showed him the ksubah, and they showed him witnesses, and they showed him a ganze matzah. So he suddenly starts realizing that this is a serious situation over here. Because he realized that this is not a joke. They really did it the right way. This is full chasana. This was a wedding. And the girl is now married, and now he doesn't know. So he's thinking, I got to check this. I got to figure out what's happening. So he decides to go off with this guy to talk to him a little bit. So he sits him down. At first he feeds him breakfast. He said, let's get him breakfast. Let's get to talk to him a little bit. He starts asking him what's his name, where does he come from. Anyways, he was schlepper because his clothing was all zerflicked and zerzetzt. He didn't look put together at all. He looked very poor, and he just fit. This guy was a pretty well-to-do guy, and so he starts talking to him. Said, "Where are you from?" And he starts telling him that he comes from Riminov, and he's so and so. He says, "And what?" He says he used to be the meshamish by the Mendel of Riminov. Suddenly, this guy almost faints. He says, "Yesterday I was in Riminov, and I heard the story that the Mendel of Riminov kicked out his meshamish and called him a galif. And this guy is a thief. So this poor tailor used to be a tailor, a good to nothing guy, who got here to lots of things in this, went and married my daughter, and now the son is like now I got my So he thinks you better fix this thing over here. They gotta get before this gets out in the street, because so far no one knows about it really. So before this whole thing gets out, he's gonna smooth talk him to get him to write a get. They're gonna get the whole divorce code, and he's gonna leave his daughter alone. He starts explaining to the wife and the Kala what really happened. She's really technically married, and now she says she also started crying. She didn't realize. She thought it was all a joke. And so she starts crying, and the mother's crying. So he sits down with him and he says, "Listen, this is not going to really work out. You're being married to my daughter. It's not going to be a happy marriage. You see, my daughter doesn't want you. I don't want you. My wife doesn't want you. This is not going to be good. You're not going to do well. Not with the mother-in-law, not with the father-in-law. This whole situation is no good. You know what I'm doing? I'm going to give you here a nice bit of money. Give a significant amount of money. And you're going to give us a divorce to this and that. And we're going to send you off. And you're going to go back. You'll marry a wife that's fitting for you. And you're going to have a beautiful marriage." And he says, "Sure, why not? I'm not doing that. I'm married. I'm not giving again." So he says, "Okay, you know what?" He starts bargaining with him. He starts offering him more money to the point that he said, "I'm giving you half of everything that I own. Please have rachmanis on me and give me. I have this. We don't want you. Get out of here. We don't need you." He is insisting, garnish. The guy gets angry. And he gives him a whack. 1, 2, slaps him across the face. And he's a very simple, edel bacher. And he starts crying. And he's yelling at him and screaming at him, "You're going to divorce my daughter. You're going to..." And telling you it's like the wife and the daughter have to calm the guy down. He's losing it. He's angry like anything. And Herschel doesn't know what to do. He's lost. He's scared. He wants to run away. Meanwhile, he says, "You're not getting it." She says, "You're going to run away now too? And you're going to leave my daughter in Akuna? You're going to leave my daughter? You're not going anywhere." He answers two guys that work for him. He says, "Take him." They grab him. They take him down to the cellar, to the basement. And they lock the door over there. And they say, "You'll stay over there, and you'll see. We're going to take care of you. You're going to give the get." Anyways, they kept him there 3-4 days. The guy gave him a bit of bread every day to eat, but he would come down, and every day he would try to beat him and scream at him, admonish, beat the guy up every day. It was terrible. He was there for like 3-4 days, and he saw he's stubborn. He's not changing. So finally, you used to go to the Mendel of Riminov. He says, "If you come with me to Mendel, and he tells you, and we'll go work it out. If he tells you to give a get, will you give a get? He said, absolutely. So he said, okay, then that's what we're going to do. He has his two guys take him, tie him up, put him in a wagon. So literally he was tied up, thrown in a wagon with his two chevron that run the whole situation. They're sitting, and he said, watch him, chain him to the wagon so he doesn't jump off over here and disappear. Meanwhile, him, his wife, and the Kala, so-called Kala, get into the other wagon, and they're on the way to Riminov. The Mendel of Riminov has Ruach HaKodesh, and he sees what's going on. And he knew that exactly that morning they were coming. He lets out in Riminov a notice for all the people in Riminov that by this and this time, he wants everybody to come, and everybody should be dressed in their Shabbos clothes. Everybody should be all the Shneimlach. Everybody should come dressed for Big Day Shabbos for Yom Tov at whatever 1 o'clock p.m. Okay, everybody arrives. People are wondering, what? Where and what's happening? And Mendel said, "Come with us. Come with me." He brings and he leads them to the outskirts of the city, and they're waiting. They're waiting by the road. From the road, suddenly there are two wagons that are coming. You can see two wagons. As they get closer, they see a guy tied up in the wagon. And they see it's no one else. This is Mom. This is the Shabbos over here. This is the guy that kicked out of town yesterday. And they're wondering. And the other one, they knew this guy also. He's a famous guy. He owned the inn that wasn't too far away. And again, he was a pretty wealthy guy, and it was his only daughter. That was part of the thing. And I thought I'm going to do a shidduch with the best shidduch in town for my daughter. And now I have this yukel over here who I can't get rid of, right? So now the Mendel comes, and when they get there, the wagon stops, and the Mendel goes up to the wagon. First thing he tells them to take, he wishes them Chatan and Mazel Tov. He says, Mazel Tov, Mazel, they're confused. And he tells them to quickly untie the chassan. So they untie the chassan. And Mendel says like this, you father of the Kala, please come with me on that wagon. So he gets into the wagon together with Reb Hershel and the father. And the girl, together with her mother, she should stay in this wagon. And they said, we're going to town. Meanwhile, he tells all the chassidim around to start singing like Yisham, mamash like after a chuppah. And everybody's singing and dancing. The whole town is dancing. And they're sitting there, and they're shaking. And the father's angry. And if he doesn't know, he can't say anything, because so far they never even gave him a chance to talk. When they get to the house, Rabbi gives instructions. No one come in. Only the mechutanim and the girl should come, and the chassan, they should go into the house. Everybody, Mendel says, go back to your homes, but I want you back at 6 p.m. I want everybody back over here, and everybody should bring presents for chassan and kal. And they should all come back in their Shabbos clothing. That's what he intends. Fine. They come into the house, and Mendel sits them down at the table, and meanwhile he tells the chassan, he says, go to the next room. And over there, he had two big day Shabbos for him, and he had a whole he had a whole situation for him. And he got him dressed up he took off his tattered clothing, he washed him up, and he told him, get yourself ready. And they're sitting, and they're kind of, they don't know. And meanwhile, the door opens up, and the chassan walks in, and he looks completely different, and he has a shine in the face, and he looks so fresh and everything. And they look up, and they're even seething with anger. They're feeling really upset. And they suddenly start pouring out their heart. And they say, this is a Meshuggah and Maisa. We know this thing, we have a daughter playing. There's people, crazy people. They said a bunch of late sonim, a bunch of latesim come, a bunch of, lawless people came to my house, started making a dance of this, convinced my daughter to go under the chuppah. And they made it, this guy's in action, and he doesn't want to leave. And there's no way. He said, and he starts threatening. He says, if this is going to be, if you're going to keep this shidduch, he says, we don't know what we're going to do. We're probably going to have to kill ourselves. That's what he threatened. He said, we're going to kill because we can't live with this busha, with this chera. Then he started threatening. He said, if you don't deal with it, if you don't tell him, we're going to get the authorities involved, and we're going to go master this situation. We're not going to stand for this. He lets them talk and vent and cry, and until they're done, they're finished, they're crying, and they're pleading and everything. When they're all done, the Mendel suddenly says, listen here, let me tell you something. This young man that you're seeing over here, this young man, he's not a schlepper. He's not a this and this. He's an incredible tzaddik. He's an unbelievable person. He says, you should know. He says, he will be one day the leader of thousands and thousands of chassidim. And he will be one of the greatest rebbes in Poland. He said, this will be an incredible, great. This is what he says. He says, just like the Arizal came down, and he said that he came down just for one student, Reb Chaim Vital, so he can transmit to Reb Chaim Vital all of his teachings. So is it that 9 Neshama came down into this world to transmit to this one student that I have. Therefore, you should know that I went up also and checked out up there, and I found out that the zivug from Shemayim, from him, I looked it up. The zivug that the Eibishter said is this girl, your daughter, and therefore, if you want to fight what God has preordained, there's no sense in that. But I'm telling you that you're not doing a bad deal. Actually, this is the most beautiful thing that for your daughter, and they're going to live a happy life, a wonderful life together. And she's very, very lucky that she's getting such a chassid. And he said to them that, and I knew that the regular way, if they would suggest a shidduch to you based on his outside appearance and the way he's been behaving and hiding it, you wouldn't be master. And the same story with the Baal Shem Tov, as we know. The Baal Shem Tov was also, they was tricked to marry the sister of Gershon Kittever. It was a crazy story, the whole same type of story. The family thought that this schlepper, this guy, they didn't want him. They wanted to cancel the shidduch. They wanted to force that he should divorce her. Same story, same kind of story. So he said, listen here, you should know that from heaven. So what happened? He said, we set this up. And he says, you should know that whole 7 people that came were Malachim, and let's talk about this week's parasha, were Malachim and Neshamis that came down into this world to activate and bring about this shidduch, so that this chassid can happen. Which, by the way, in the sefer they bring, that when the person, this Rebbe, told this story, there were rabbanim there and became a whole deal. If these were kosher le'edus, if this, and there was a discussion if he had them do a kedushin over again. But this was the story that he related, and therefore the zug, and he said, and the truth is, what you really need to do is go beg him mechila for hitting him and shaming him and beating him up and all this kind of thing. So now suddenly their whole demeanor changed, and they were crying. And he said, "Why are you crying?" He said, "We're crying out of joy that we were zeicha. There's no question over here if this is the right thing." And they got up, they were begging him for mechila, and then later that night there was the big chasana, and they got married, and they lived happily ever after. Later he became the big tzaddik, as I mentioned earlier, a very big Chayil Yeshuas. He was the. So this was a story of Mendel of Riminov and his incredible godly power.
Why was he Mevayah like that in front of everybody?
Oh, so Rav Naftali of Ropshitz, I forgot the end of the story. Very good, thank you for saying. So Rav Naftali of Ropshitz was there at that wedding. And he asked his Rebbe, Mendel, he said, you called him a god. You called him that way, you threw him out. I'm like, why did you do that? So he said, how did you call him a god? Say that I didn't say anything that's not true. He's the biggest god, because since he's been over here, he's been stealing from me all my thoughts. In other words, everything that I'm not revealing, that I'm keeping secret, he pumps it and steals everything. I said, I have never had a student, I've never had anybody else from all the tzadikim who came who steals so much from me like he. So that's what I meant when I said he's a ganet. And from the day he came over here, he's been stealing, he's been downloading illegal downloads. He's been accessing the internal treasures and taking what he necessarily wasn't given permission to take, but he took. Anyways, that's the story. Just to give you a parallel where the Mendel of Riminov sits in terms of the time zone, he was born the same year the Alter Rebbe was born. But he was born in Germany. And I'm going to tell the story how he came totally from out of the woodworks, not at all anywhere close to where Hasidus was there. He had an incredible story of what brought his neshama to Hasidus through Rabbi Malka of Nicholasburg, but it's a whole story. But he was born in Tavkuf Hay. He passed away in Tavkuf Ayin Hay 1 year after the Alter passed away in Tavkuf Ayin Gimel. So he passed away about a year and a half later after the Alter Rebbe. He was the main one that the Alter Rebbe was arguing with regarding Napoleon should win. there was machlokes by the tzadikim. So he was the chair. He was the one who felt Napoleon has to win the war, and he was fighting for Napoleon. I would venture to say that the story with the Alter Rebbe blowing the shofar first, was with Mendel of Riminov. That makes most sense, even though they tell the story it was with Rabbi Shlomo of Karliner, but it's not with Rabbi Shlomo of Karliner. They haven't even points that out in Rabbi Shlomo of Karliner passed away many years before. And then in the Chabad sources, they claim it was Rabbi Yisrael of Koznitz, but Rabbi Yisrael of Koznitz was not so decisive whether he's going with Napoleon or with things. So therefore, Libi Oimeli, that it was Mendel of Riminov that was there, because he took it with this, because he was crazy about Mashiach. He felt that the Geula has to come, and he was fighting tooth and nail to bring Mashiach, and he felt that if Napoleon is going to win the war, that's going to bring the Geula. The Alter Rebbe saw that it wasn't the time yet, and the Alter Rebbe knew that it has to be whatever it is. So this was the two tzadikim that were this. We're talking about that caliber tzadikim who were trying to shake the heavens this way or that way. L'chaim l'brach. Mendel of Riminov said he's not going to have a quiet sleeping party. He's going to bring 2 busloads of butter. That's what he said. We're gonna get the party rolling. Baruch Hashem, we're getting more pizza. We're gonna get the jets. The jets are gonna fly in. That's what the Mendel said. For my party, I want to really knock it. I want to give a big yashar koyach to the Tzadikim family. There's foundation for all the prophets, for all the free blessings, and especially, Mendel of Riminov was known to be the tzaddik that is being mashpia parnasa for the world. So we talk about tzadikim, especially the Indian of parnasa was very, very big. He would darshan all his 22 years that he was Rebbe. He darshaned always on the parsha of the month. That was his main drush. He would always darshan the parsha Samon, because that's where the brachas of parnasa come from. He was mashpia parnasa for the Jewish people in a very big way. So Velvel, where are you, Velvel? Where did he disappear? Oh, look at it. I picked the moments he wasn't here to give all the blessings, but okay. Parnasa comes in the merit of the wife. So you collect it. L'chaim. L'chaim of the bracha. So what's the story of his birth? It was a Yid. His name was Rabbi Yosef. He was a very big Lamdan, a very big Talmud Chacham, and he lived in a place in Bohemia called, I think, we get big brachas to you now. We were also saying that the Mendel of Riminov, he was very big of being mashpia parnasa in a very big way. So that's for your schus. In any case, there should be a big schus for everyone, and especially for those who need Yeshuas. And once Mendel is down here with us tonight, we're going to tell him that there are 241 hostages that need to be taken out right away, and I'm sure he can pull some strings. Especially since I'm mentioning strings, you'll see soon why I'm mentioning strings. And he can pull some strings because he literally pulled strings of his own tzitzis to get out of situations. And being that all the soldiers today are flaunting their tzitzis, Remendel, that was one of his things. He would flaunt his tzitzis when he needed to take care of business. Interesting, but we're going to get to that. Here's a story. There was a Yid, his name was Rabbi Yosef. He lived in a place called, in Yiddish, it's called Neustadt. So it must be Neustadt or something, somewhere in Bohemia. And this is where he was, this Rabbi Yosef. And this Rabbi Yosef was, what exactly was his parnasa? I think he would sit and learn Torah most of the day. His wife had an inn, but they were pretty well to do. They weren't rich, but they had a decent parnasa. And from their inn that they had. In any case, his wife would run the business most of the time. He would learn. And he had many people that he acquaintances, and some of them, happened to be one particular very wealthy nobleman who was close to their family. And he would, from time to time, when he had various different problems and different things, he felt that this Jew was the best person to speak to. So he would come to him and speak to him. One time, this nobleman arrives and he says, listen here, I got into big trouble with the government. They're after me. And I need to get out of here. I need to leave town. And therefore, what I'm doing is, mamash, within a week or two, I need to be out of here for my safety. And therefore, he said, I'm looking to literally sell my estate. But before I approach anybody else to sell my estate, being that you're a dear friend of mine, I'd rather first go to you. If you want to buy, I'm going to obviously sell it as a closeout sale. It's going to be like a foreclosure. And I'm going to give you my entire estate for an incredible reduce, maybe half off or whatever. Or maybe even less than that, so 30%. So this was a deal you could, and he didn't have, of course, the money, but he said, but the only tonight is that I needed cash in a week from now. So he hears this. He says, I got to talk to my wife. He goes and he speaks to his wife, and he says, this is what was offered to him. They don't have the money. But if they sell their inn and the possessions and their jewelry and everything that they own, everything that they own, plus they can get out a couple of loans, they can buy this. And imagine, they'll get this, and then before they know it, they'll be like crazy wealthy. And it's like mamish mashuga for them not to do this. So they both decided it's the right thing to do. And this is what they did. They hustled and hustled and hustled. By the end of the week, the guy had all the money that he needed to buy the estate. Off he goes, and he's going to visit the nobleman at his estate. And on the way going, and he's already dreaming in his mind about what kind of wealthy man he will be, Be'ezus Hashem, just in a couple of hours. The deal will be sealed, and everything is good. But as he's walking, he suddenly hears like terrible weeping and crying. And he hears it's like Kailas literally screaming, crying, many people. And in the moment when he hears crying, his heart touches his heart. He's got to check this out. He forgot it already that he's going over there. So he starts following where the cries are coming from. And it's coming from like a broken down shack house. So he goes there and knocks on the door, and the door opens up. And what happened was, it's a whole family. They're all sitting, a woman with 7 children. In the middle is lying the man. And basically, this guy had a heart attack and he died. It's the father. Mamish died. And they're crying and crying. And so he right away gets involved and he says, let me call the Chevra Katisha, let's help. He stayed there for a couple of hours trying to arrange whatever they can. They should have money. They should be the kfuda and all this. And after a while, after he got it all taken care of, he was ready to leave. But they started and they're crying. They said, who's going to take care of us? There's no one to take care of the assignment. There's mamish, our husband. He was our father, our husband. Our husband, our father, he was the, thank you. Our husband, our father, he was the one who was the breadwinner, now nothing. His heart went out. And this is what he did. He took the entire pack of cash that was sitting in his pocket. Literally, he grabbed the entire, this was like, the stash. This is a briefcase. He took the entire briefcase, loaded with cash that he had just sold his entire estate. And at the moment, he felt that this is the mitzvah the Eibush sent him at this moment. He handed the family over the entire, he didn't take even $100 for himself. Literally, he handed over the entire thing, and he said, this is for the family, and Hashem will take care of you. And Baruch Hashem, now you'll be able to take care. Because she was crying, how are they going to marry off their daughters? And how are they going to make the shidduch? And this is what he did. Turned around and he left, and in his heart was racing. You know what he just did? Pashut now turned himself into a pauper. Doesn't have a penny because he sold everything that he owns. Everything that had any value in his house. Everything. And not only that, but he owes people money. Because he went and borrowed from people, and that was part of the cash that he brought. And now suddenly, not only doesn't he have a thing to his name, but he became a huge Baal Chayim without anything. But this is what he felt was the right thing to do. He ran back to his wife, and he told her about what just happened. She was a tzadikis like him. And she said, if this was your mitzvah, that this is our lot, the Eibush is going to help. And that was it. But basically, they had to leave that day. They were moving out because they had sold it. And they hit the road to literally start looking, first to beg for a couple of something to eat, because they literally had nothing. They didn't leave a dollar. And they went, and they're going. As they're walking, they leave their little area they went, and they went to the next town. It took them a few hours, don't have a wagon. They're walking, they're tired. So he comes, and he passes in front of the shul in the town. So his wife sits down, there's a bench outside. He sits down with her. No, first they sit down both together to rest a little bit. And then he tells his wife, we're listening to Talmud Chacham, he wants to go with me. He said, let me go to shul a little bit. We'll see, maybe I'll meet someone, have to swat, where and when. They're hungry, they didn't eat anything. So he goes into the shul, and he immediately goes to the bookshelf, takes out a Gemara, opens it. And this was his passion in his life. He starts learning. He's learning, he's lost in his learning. And while he's learning, suddenly, a Yid sits down next to him. A Yid walks in, and this Jew sits down next to him. And the Jew starts sitting and listening to his learning. And then when he sees him stop, the Jew says, hello, the smachsta, where are you from? What's going on? He engages him in conversation. A couple of minutes into the conversation, he basically told him the story. And this is new for me. I don't know where I'm going. I just literally gave away my entire fortune. I felt bad for this widow now, fresh widow and orphans. I gave everything away, and I'm here. I don't know. So the guy turns to me and says, listen here. Wow. I mean, what you just did, it's not normal. This is superhuman. This is not even a normal thing. How do you do that? This mitzvah that you got for this is like the craziest mitzvah. I'll do a deal with you. I want to buy this mitzvah. I'm Baruch Hashem very well off. I want you to sell me the mitzvah that you just did, and I'm going to give you a huge amount of money for it. And he turns to him and he says, no way. This is a mitzvah that the Eibush gave me to do. And a mitzvah like this that you did with Mesiras Nefesh, that once in a lifetime you get a schus to do a real mitzvah. And you're Mesiras Nefesh for a mitzvah, I'm not giving it away. The guy said, listen, with the money that I'm giving you now, not only will you get this money, but you can still run back to the nobleman and make your deal. So do you realize what this is? I'm going to take care of this. This like it. He says, absolutely nothing to talk about. Anyways, the guy he continues learning, and the guy starts to again approach him. And he starts promising him more. And then he says, you know what, don't give me the whole mitzvah, give me half the mitzvah. He starts bargaining, give me 50%, give me 20%, back and forth, drain him a cup for about 2-3 hours. Finally, after a couple of hours of persistence of making him crazy, he said, no, forget about it, to talk about. Suddenly, he turns to him and he says, listen here, I have to tell you who I am. He basically said to him, Zostavison, you should know that I'm a Leo and Navi. When you did what you did that day in heaven, what you did just yesterday, today in the morning, yesterday in heaven, made such a Raj Gadol in heaven that the place was shaking. A mitzvah Mesiras Nefesh like this has never been done in who knows what. For that reason, they decreed upon you that you should be zeicha to something incredible schus. You're going to have an unbelievable bracha. And as they were ready to give you the bracha, the Satan arrived. And the Sultan said, listen here, you can't give such a tremendous gift to someone without putting them first to the test. It's not enough that he just did this Mesiris Nefesh, but you have to test him if he's really learning. And this is what he started making sadis. When I heard the Sultan doing that, I figured I better rush in. So I came up and volunteered. I said, I'll test him. Let me be the one that comes down to test. So he says, and Baruch Hashem, you passed the test. That you weren't going to touch that mitzvah. And no money in the world. You valued what it is. You valued your mitzvah. That you did it with a purity and with the emeskite. And therefore, they never had children. He said, the bracha is going to be that you're going to have a child. And this child will light up the world. Will be a lichtigkeit, incredible light. A real tzaddik like the world hasn't seen in a long time. Incredible tzaddik. This is what you're going to get as a so this boy, this was Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Riminov that was born as this bracha from his parents. So Rabbi Mendel, when he was a little boy, so when he got a little older, he was learning there in yeshivas, wherever he was. He traveled to Germany, to Berlin actually. There was a yeshiva there, a beis medrash that had a huge library. And, Berlin was then just beginning to become the center of the Haskalah movement, of the Enlightenment, of reform, and the whole thing. But there was still, this is right at the beginning, so there was still pockets of true, real Gute Yidden. There was a Yid, his name was Rabbi Daniel Yalta something. He had a big shul with a huge library, and he would support many people to come and learn. It wasn't like an official yeshiva. This son, Menachem Mendel, went to learn over there. And he would sit and study. He was very, very high neshama, obviously. And he was a genius, and he would learn Torah day and night. And particularly, he had an incredible kesher nafshi, spiritual connection to the Rif. The Rif, he learned Torah. Later in his life, he learned 18 Blat Gemara Rashi Tosfos every single day. This was his Seder. This was 18 Daf Gemara. This was every day his Seder. But he had a special connection with the Rif. He felt like when he loved learning Rif. This was like his. In any case, one night when he was learning, he was very, very tired. And the story is obviously, when you read in a few different books and you read the same story with different versions, you know that the stories are emes amaisa. It's just that there's different. But somehow how the story is that as he fell asleep, either before that he was crying to the Eibishter to be able to lead him to a Rebbe, to a place where he can actually, because he was learning Gemara, he was learning all the stuff, but he needed someone to open his soul for him. So he was crying. Suddenly the Rif appeared to him, and the Rif told him, he said, you should go. He said, Mendel. He said, go and, according to one version I read, Geh zu Menachem. Go to Menachem. But according to another version, it basically said it's a big tzaddik in Poland called Rebbe Melech, and you should go to him, and him you will. So he did a little research, and he made his way. On the way, he ended up at Rabbi Shmelke, Nicholasburg's yeshiva for a while, who was also a student of Rebbe Melech of Luzensk, was also a student of the Maggid, but then he became a student of Rebbe Melech, and he already sent him to go to Rebbe Melech. He was very poor. He didn't have any money to go. We'll tell you the story about Shem in a moment, but let's first sing some niggun. Being that today was the Rebbe Shab's. Today was the Rebbe Shab's birthday, so we're gonna connect to the Rebbe Shab through singing the rest of it, the rest of it. The compliments give yes and money. Yes. One came out to the Chassidim. The story was told by the Rabbi who was there himself. And Chassidim were sitting together. And, they were telling stories of Tzadikim. I don't know how, what, where, and when. It's not so common. The Lubavitchers should tell stories of others. But more months, even Lubavitchers can make mistakes sometimes. Make mistakes. And somehow they were telling stories of other tzaddikim in Lubavitch too. And the Tzemach Tzedek asked, who are they talking about? And they said they're talking about the tzaddik, the Mendel of Riminov. So the Tzemach Tzedek said, you're talking about the Mendel of Riminov and you only have one candle on the table. But the Mendel of Riminov, you have to put a lot of wood, a lot of candles. Because the Mendel of Riminov was a tzaddik amiti, he was a real tzaddik. Tzemach Tzedek sat down and he said, let me tell you a story. He said there was a shaykhit, there was a person who was a shaykhit. He was also a moil. And he lived in Riminov. He was a big Talmud Chacham, and he was a fine Jew. And he did his business. The Mendel notified him once, more than once, that very interesting thing. He said the chitzaynim are after you. What does that mean? He basically said the demons are after you. The powers of impurity are seeking. The Mendel of Riminov told this shaykhit this moil. You should know that the chitzaynim, which means the satanic forces, demonic forces, powers of impurity, are trying to hack your soul. So be very careful. And he warned them a few times. So how do you watch from the chitzaynim? What do you do? He should have maybe asked Mendel exactly how do you watch from them. But anyways, but he warned them. He said a few times, be careful. One time, he was invited to come to a bris, and he was told that they're going to send him a wagon, and they're going to take him to this village, not too close, not too far, and he would be the mile there to do the circumcision. So they said they're sending him a driver. They're sending him an Uber driver. So he gets ready, and the wagon comes. He hops onto the wagon, and they're off they go. A little bit into the ride, he starts noticing that it doesn't look like this guy is going where he thought he's supposed to go. You know, sometimes you're in an Uber and you're trying to wonder, and the guy's name is Muhammad, and he's riding ahead. You start basically checking your maps if this is where you were supposed to go. So this is kind of what he's feeling, but meanwhile the wagons go really fast. Before he knows it, he's in a deep forest. And he's getting more antsy, but he's thinking, maybe I forgot the way. Gets there, like, they go. It seems like a couple of hours. Finally, they come out somewhere, and they come into this clearing in the forest, and this big mansion. And to bring him in, and outside over there's a bunch of people with beards and whatever. It looks like Shana Yidden, and people, the Mile is here, and and he says right away he's nervous. He gets a sense that something is awful. He doesn't like what's happening. So he tells them right away, let me go see the baby. He wants to get right to business. He doesn't want to talk to them. Let me go leave it to the baby. So they let him up to a room where the mother of the child had the child. As he comes in to inspect the baby, the mother tells him quickly lock the door. She suddenly starts crying. And she says, this is not a joke. You don't know where you are right now. She says, I was kidnapped a long time ago. Can't get out of here. This is a very, very dangerous place. These are demons. These are really, and the head of them kind of took me as his wife. I don't want to be here, and I'm trying. It's nothing. She said, but you're in trouble because you're not going to be able to get. No one who comes in here gets out of here alive. And she says, you're in Tsars. But one thing, and he says, what do I do? Wow, we got very scared. She said, the first thing in order for your own safety, this is what you do. That this might protect you. You're going to try to get you to eat something. You don't eat. Don't even take water. Don't even take a swallow. Whatever they will offer you, deny, and they will pressure you, but you do not take anything. And if you don't need anything from them, they won't be able to they want to power on you. Okay? So he was there for a while, checked out, comes out, and he's nervous, but they start coming over, and a lot of guests are coming. And this is the night before the bris. They tell him, they said, okay, they're having dinner downstairs, you should come down. He says, no, I ate already, I'm not hungry. They start pestering him, come. And meanwhile, the smell of the food he had eaten all day, and it's like enticing like crazy, but he knows Mishumai he's not going to eat. He doesn't eat, everybody rejected a bunch of. Anyway, the next morning, bunch more guests are coming. They're coming, it's a big meal they're having, and he does the bris. And afterwards, they tell him, this is your Sudas mitzvah. You gotta come to pay them. He's fighting them, but he's stubborn. Thank God he was able to be stubborn. As much as he was so thirsty and tired and everything, he was not going to touch food that they gave him. He was also having Mechaber Mendel of Riminov. He was trying to connect his Rebbe. And somehow, after this whole thing, he said to them, I need to get back. So they actually had him a driver. They put him on the wagon, and off he went. He got back to them in a Baruch Hashem, safe and alive. He gets back. And Mendel right away notified his Mishanish that when this person comes, you shouldn't dare let him into the house. And when he comes, you should yell at him and say, Tame, go out, you Tame, you're contaminated. Go away, don't you come next to my house. He right away knows that he wants, the first thing he needs to get off his chest, he needs to go to the Rebbe to get it. He comes to the house, suddenly the Gaboyim are yelling at him, don't you dare put your foot, even over here, out. Today. Anyways, so he comes back, goes to the mikveh, and comes back the next day, he says Tehillim, again they kick him out. It was like 3-4 days that he tried to come. Finally, he's begging and crying. And the Mendel gave permission, they should let him in. When he came in, the Mendel said to him, I told you, I warned you that after you, and you didn't watch yourself. You should have been more inquiring when people are calling you, who's calling you, what, where, and when. You realize what happened. But you should know they haven't given up on you. And this is, they kind of latched themselves a little bit on you, but you managed to stay safe. But they're gonna get you again. So therefore, he says, those the chas v'shalom. He then calls up. I don't remember if it was at that meeting or later another time, or he actually said to him, listen here. What's going to happen is that when you will have to go back to them. That's what he said to him. Why was he fighting again? I don't remember what was that he needed to go, and he came to the Rebbe again, and Mendel said to him, listen here. You are going to have a really hard work because since you went there already and you were amongst them, the only tickle that you have, kind of cleanse yourself of this, is that you need to go there and you need to nullify them. And the way you're going to nullify them is that you are going to yell at them when you meet them. You're going to yell at them again and again that they're nobody. Du bist garnished. You're nothing. And they're going to try. And you're not going to stop. You're going to keep, every time they're going to intimidate you, you're just going to tell them, you're ein v'efes, garnished. That's how you're going to have to yell at them. Why was it that he went back? I tried to remember that detail of the story, and I forgot. I forgot the story, like how he knew he has to go back.
There's a checkup on the baby.
Checkup on the baby wasn't that. It was, I don't remember. Anyway, he did travel back. And when he came there, he started telling this to them, one after another. They were getting so angry. And they were screaming and yelling. And he was telling them, garnished. So the head, leader of the whole thing, says to his chedra, he says, listen, he's not going to get away from us. He said he wants to have a room full of, that everybody the whole chedra should be in one room together. And let's see how he's going to deal with them when they're all together. So they brought him in front of the whole thing, and he started yelling. He was petrified, and he starts yelling at them. And this guy gives a wink to these guys, and they start literally, when they're speaking to him, flames of fire shooting out of their mouths, and they're like, mamish, like in his face, like flashing, and they're smoking, they're turning all kinds of colors, and they've the most evilest, monstrous faces. He's literally quaking and shaking. He doesn't know like how he's going to survive. He's feeling he's going to die anymore. but he's holding on for dear life and he's screaming, "You're nothing! You're nothing! It's a garnet! You're garnet! You're garnet! I'm gonna spoil you, garnet!" And actually, it's thinning out the crowd. It's less and less and less. He's like kind of knocking them out with his total dismissal of their existence. Finally, the head guy says to him, "Listen here. Tell me, how dare you come mess with us? How are you not afraid? You know how powerful we are. You know, who do you think you are?" He says, "I'm not here with my own power. I'm here, I have a Rebbe." And he said, "Who's your Rebbe?" He said, my Rebbe's name is Menachem Mendel of Riminov. He told, and with his power, I'm here. He says, Rebbe's, we know what Rebbe's. He says, and you know what? I'm going to check it. Someone said the story. We'll check this out. He says his Mashadas, he says, "Go out there, bring us the book of the Rebbe's." And he says, "Listen here, if your Rebbe's name is in our book, then your Rebbe's there's a lot of like semi, whatever. And that book was all these Rebbe who do thing, and there's a little shtick, and there's a little like anything that's done, and it's not 100%, purely selfless without any sense. And then but if there's any bit of like Yeshus, or if there's any bit of shtick that is made, or playing things more than what it is, or whatever, even a tiny bit, then they have this, they get a Yanika kind of, they have them in the book. So he basically checks up, punches in the name of Riminov, and he gets the file, and basically he's not there, they can't find it. And they basically said that we have no power over you. If you have a Rebbe that is not on our list, that means he's not, he's the real McCoy. So he came out, and when he came back to the Mendel of Riminov, the Mendel said, was machabed him very much, let him in right away, and he said he did a big tikkun, he nullified them. It's a very strange story. I once said this story, and people were what's it called again? I once said it by a Thursday night shir, not a Thursday night shir, by a Monday shir. I used to have the CDs all over town. So one of the B'nai in the city, he came over and he was like, he couldn't believe, this is such a ridiculous story. This is not an Emerson story. This is Bubba Nice. How can he shaved it with a story, but he's laughing the whole time. He was having a hard time believing this, that this can even be a story with shaded, with a bliss, with a nice. So I was wondering, and I was thinking, why don't we have stories with Shadim and these things? And then I thought to myself, I know what happened. Shadim are no more in the forest; they're actually in Washington. There's a bunch of them. And they're in. So I said, you know what? They took more prominent positions. They might even be in other. So, but they're actually occupying a lot of places where they are. And they're running the whole world, Meshuggah, today. What was the name of the They're called Shadim. Shade means demon. They're out there. They're no more in caves. That's the thing. They've gotten out. Yeah, this was the story that Tzemach Tzedek said.
So you know that he was a tzaddik.
Yes, tzaddik. Hi. Yes. Excuse me. Hi. 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 Different meanings. Hi. Hi. I'm starting to tell you the story. Chaim, and once the Rid revealed himself, this Bach learning in Germany, in Berlin, telling him to go travel to Poland to go get himself a Rebbe. Rip, yeah. It's worth listening to tonight's. He was one of the halacha decided on three pillars: the Rambam, the Rib, and the Rabbeinu Usher, called the Rosh, not the Rosh. Okay. three of the main halachic codifiers. Halach is always like two out of those three agree on something. That's what halach. The Rif was the oldest of all three. The Rif lived before the Rambam, before the Rabbi. So at the back of the Gemara, there is a basically it looks like Gemara as well, but it's not Gemara. It's Rif. It's basically he takes out from the Gemara the halachas and he like sets halacha in there. On the side of him is the Ran, different ones we give Pirushim.
So the week is before the Rabbi?
Even before the Rambam. In any case, going back to what we were saying is that he was trying to figure out how he could travel to Luzensk, to Poland, to whatever. He didn't even know where it was. Maps. And he heard suddenly someone put him into contact with a wagon, with a wagon that's going in that direction. But he was poor, he didn't have what to pay. So he made a condition with the wagon, with the thing. There were other riders there, but his condition was that when they stop at the various different inns and different places, and they all go to eat and think, he's going to take care of the horses, he's going to give them eat, he's going to be the watchman over there outside. So for that service, they should give him the ride. So they were masking him. So he hopped on, and he's going. Obviously, they all went inside. It was cold outside. They would all warm up, and they had normal clothing. He didn't. He stayed outside. Plus, they all got food to eat, and he had nothing to eat. He was hungry. There's no cafeteria on the wagon. They didn't have money to pay for it. So partially he was starving. And but he was happy going to learn Torah. He's going to these mamish machalish. And when they would stop, one time when they would stop again, certainly he was feeling really hungry and really cold. And he was walking outside, shivering, literally. And no one was paying attention to have Rachmanis and nothing. So he's walking, he's shivering, he's cold, and he's hungry. Like so, he said to himself, he said, thank Hashem that I have an appetite. Thank the Eibishter, I have an appetite. Thank the Eibishter, he said, God, we have to thank Hashem that I have a body that's cold. So that was, he kept on repeating it. Thank the Eibishter that I can be sick and not have an appetite. But I have an appetite. So I'm healthy. A healthy person has an appetite. Thank the Eibishter that I have an appetite. Thank Hashem. And somebody had coming out already. One of the guys came to smoke a cigarette, whatever. One of the guys going to go hungry for that lunch now. He came out to smoke. He finished his pastrami sandwich. And he's outside smoking. He sees this guy talking to himself. So he listens and he hears him say this. And it caught his curiosity. What was he saying? Was he crazy? He didn't look like a good nutcase. He looked like a pretty normal guy. What's he saying? Thanking Hashem that I have an appetite. So he went over to him. He said, I thank Hashem that I have an appetite. I'm feeling actually very hungry. So I said, why don't you eat it? I can't afford it. So the guy had Rahmanis, and then he took him in, he got him lunch, he got him food. And then he said also that he had an extra coat with him. He gave him the coat. And he gave him a hat. But the hat and the coat that he gave him were basically not what the Hasidic Yidden wore. He looked like Anyways, so this is the way he is. And he arrives in Luzensk dressed in this. But he was a boy from Germany. He didn't have the whole Polish Hasidic situation. And Rabbi Melech was very mocked that people dress in Hasidic garb. They don't dress, whatever. And he had guards, actually. He had his gabbai there. He was supposed to make sure that no one comes into him looking whatever. And he even had a few hats outside, like Hasidic hats, that were hanging in the hallway there next to the Melech's room. If someone needed to switch his hat, they would, or casquettes, you can imagine back in Poland, that they would give him one that he looks like a Psachatzi Yid. And also the kaftan hanging over there. So, but when he came, no one was there. So he walked right into the Melech's room, dressed the way he was dressed. And the Melech stood up for him, and he called him over, and he was talking to him. So, and suddenly the guy came back, and he took a look, the vow. So he gets very scared because he's supposed to watch, and he knew he'd be in big trouble. So he ran and he called the Melech's son, Rabbi Lazar. And he said, "Go quickly, get him out." So the Rabbi Lazar goes, and he's the son of the Melech. He's standing at the door, and he's trying to be not seen, but he's winking to him. And Rabbi Melech sees, and Rabbi Melech says, "Loser." his own son, loser. He says, Losen. He says, die seht nicht, als es finken fire coming from sein. Don't you see that there are sparks of fire coming from his forehead? I can see past the... Anyways, he stayed in Luzensk. An interesting story I saw today was as follows. When the man appointed him, he was a big Talmud Chacham. The man appointed him to become the Rabbi of his grandchildren. He did the Melaveh. And he would try to get the kids to come learn. And kids don't want to learn. They want to bullshit it. They want to run around. So whenever he would try to get them into class, and they would they would run away, and he used to get upset, and he used to yell at them, and they weren't listening. So the only thing that would work, he would tell them, I'm going to go to the Zayda. I'm going to go snitch on you. So when he would say that, the kids would sit down, and they would behave. One time, Rabbi Malka had his Eineklich children there, and he said to them, next time the Melaveh warns you he's going to come and threaten you that he's gonna switch on you to me, just ignore him. Don't care. Fine. So he's there next day and he's trying to get the kids in the cheder, round them up, and they're drunk, and he tried every trick. He's gonna give them a candy, he's gonna give them a garden, they don't want to come. Finally he said, he's up in the cheder. This is his last thing that he would always pull out. He's like, Belay's Bereda, if nothing else works, this will work. And for some reason they're ignoring him. And he tried it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, and he just couldn't have a classroom. The place was like, so he comes into the Rebbe Malka, and he says, the Kinder kommen nicht, they will nicht lernen, they don't want to learn, and I don't want to do, I can't handle that anymore. So the Melech says, du misst erst vergessen dann behemische Teure.
Wow.
Because he learned not behemish, he learned in Bohemia. He grew up, he says, du misst erst vergessen dann behemische Teure. He says, meine Eineklich wollen nicht lernen von dir, as long as you have your behemische Teure. You forget your behemische Teure, then my Eineklich. So he went like this. On his forehead. And he said, almost. Almost. So the man says, good. Says good. In any case, he was very, very, very poor. He got married to a woman to a girl from somehow Shidduch or whatever, who we were when he was already a student by the Melech. And he got married to a girl from a pretty decent to well-off family. He said he's a Talmud Chacham. And they lived in the city called Plistik. Plistik was the name of it's a Galiciana town called Plistik. This is where the girl came from. And he moved over there. Father-in-law was going to take care of them because he was a Talmud Chacham and so on. What happened is, a little while after the wedding, he was a real tzaddik. So the word got around town that every day they see the mikveh used to be at the bottom of a hill. And there was a snow, and they would notice that every day on the way down to where the mikveh was, there was in the snow, there was a whole long path of looked wide. It looked like there's some like a snowmobile that's gone down. They were wondering what it is. What's this weird? And then someone came to look, how does it happen every day? It snows new snow, and there's always a thing. So someone realized that they saw that this younger man, one of his sigufim that he would do, he would go to the mikveh. The mikveh was freezing cold. It was a freezing ice lake at the bottom. But he would get undressed and he would roll down in the snow. That was one of the sigufim that Tzadikim would do, that they would torture their bodies by going in the snow. So he would go, and then he would go into the ice, and then he would come out, and then he would have to clamber his way back up. And basically, this was his infliction for his body. So when the Shver heard about this for Shigas, and everybody started laughing at this crazy guy who does these cool things. So he didn't like it, and then he started seeing with his Bechlal that he does all these Chassidish shtick that was new kind of at that time. And he was a shtickle on the Snagid, and he got really angry, and he started telling his daughter, he started yelling at it, that he must stop these ways, just sit and learn in shul, be a mensch, be a normal person. Craziness. Back and forth, same story like the Alter Rebbe is. The Alter Rebbe had the same story. The Shver and the Shviger started making them life miserable. They started telling the daughter that she must divorce. She didn't want Shemai, she knew who he was. Back and forth, he didn't want, and he basically hit this home. Because of that, they became extremely poor. And Mendel wasn't shy to any work, to anything. He was Oived Hashem, go sit and learn and be like an Oilem Sayanim, that was his place. His wife started to put together some kind of a work that she was doing. I don't know exactly what she was doing, but she made a couple of copies to keep them barely alive. They had already a few children. They started getting children, and the house was empty, mamish empty. One time, she mamish didn't earn a penny for a few days. There was nothing to eat. The kids, so how did the kids survive? The neighbors sometimes had the rachmanis because they looked at these kids, nothing to eat. The neighbors had, plus there's something used to be leftovers. There was a little leftovers. So she managed to give, but he was in shul, and what she would do is she would bring him food. She would bring him a meal. But now it was a couple of days that she had nothing to bring. It was literally nothing to bring. She tried getting from credit already from all the stores. She had a bill in credit in all the stores. There was no money. And no one would give her. And she mamish. So her kids managed to starve, but she felt terrible because she knew that her husband hasn't eaten and he's probably literally going to starve to death. She knew that he wouldn't ask anybody in shul. He's sitting there learning and he's burnt. So she felt so terrible, she had to do something. So she went to the baker. And she knew that, and she started, she begged him to please give her at least an end of something. Maybe yesterday's, he got so angry at her when he saw her. He says, I didn't pay your bill. Like that, you still have the chutzpah to come and ask me for more. You know what, you already, you keep on telling me you're coming, you're going to pay. He got angry at her. She turned around, and she starts crying. And he notices it. And he catches, so instead of him, he had Rahmanis, but on the other hand, he catches a weak moment. So he turns to her and he says, you know what makes sense? I'll give you bread, but on the condition, he says that you're going to sell me your Olam Haba. For the bread, the exchange of the bread, you're giving me your entire portion to the world to come. Put her on the spot. And she was a holy woman. Deal is a deal. So basically. At that moment, she thought to herself, her husband is a tzaddik, and at all costs, she has to keep him alive because he's going to die. So she needed something. So she said, you know what? Take my Olam Haba, take everything, and give me that. But for that, she said, if I'm giving you my Olam Haba, I want a whole loaf of bread, and I want a nice slice of cheese. She got in the cheese as well. So he cut her a piece of cheese, and he gave her the bread, and the deal was made, and she came to her husband. She came there, he looked very weak. She helped him to go wash. He washed, he sat down, he took this thing, and he ate. And she basically said to him, you should know, by the way, that I just gave my eternity away. Everything I've given away. And she said, for him. So he looked at her and he said, you should know. And if I would have sat over here another 15 minutes, I would have been gone. I was already halfway, 3/4 out. He says, Mamish, you came at the last minute. Mamish, what you gave me now literally rescued my life. And someone who saves a person, ki'ilu kayim olam mali, as if these two kept. So you know what? You have a whole new account now. You fill the whole thing. You save the year. So it starts from that. So you're the saver. He would travel to Luzensk when he would go in old poor days. He would travel by foot in extreme poverty. And one time, as he was traveling without mamish, eating and tired and freezing, he notices on the floor, on the ground, a gold coin can help the family for 3-4 months. It's a gold coin. So Mamish sees a gift from heaven. Abishta gave him a gold coin. So he goes over and he bends down to take the gold coin. And it's an aveda. It's in the middle of the street. It's a halal. That's yours. Someone loses no siman. It's only one coin. It's a siman. He bends down to take it and he thinks to himself, if this coin was meant to me, then the Eibishter would give it to me without any ishtadlus. This is one of the things that he keeps on talking in the Sefer. He's very big on absolute bitachon on the Eibishter. The Eibishter will take care of you if you rely on it 100%. So it says that there are very big tzadikim that are not allowed to do ishtadlus. If a tzadik was punished, for most people you say you're supposed to do ishtadlus. But there are certain people that float at a higher frequency. And they're not going to do it. So as he was bending down, ready to pick it up, he said, if this coin was meant to me, the Eibishter would deliver it to me without me having to bend down to it. So he turned away, And he continued walking, hungry and tired and pauper. And he continues going, and he comes to Luzensk. He goes say shalom to the Melaveh Malka, and then he goes into the shul to learn. Sits down and he's learning, and about an hour or so later, door opens up. A yid walks in and scans the room and goes over to him and gives him a gold coin. He looks at him and he says, like, what's this? He says, I'll tell you, I was walking on the road, I came on my carriage, and on the way I saw this, the sun was shining or something, it looked like a gold. I went down, I figured out, I picked it up and I said to myself, you know what, I Baruch Hashem, I'm okay, I'm doing well, I don't need this. You know, I'm going to go to Luzensk, and I'm going to try to find someone. The first person I meet who looks like he needs it, that's the person I want to give it to. He said, you're the one. So he brought it to him. So whatever is meant to come to you, it's coming. And he got it. He was very, 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 one of his things that he fought for very strongly was for Jews. You see, his initial story about Melaveh Malka coming dressed not like,
Right.
but he was very into Hasidic garb, and he was very, very into the idea that Jews should not dress like the Gentiles. And that was one of his big things that he fought for. Very, very strong. And it's interesting. He was into women not wearing jewelry, and the women being very different than and Russian, on the other hand, and the Russian women dressed more according to style. The women from the Russian dynasty were very stylish. He fought very strongly, and he believed that all the tzaddik that was going on, that the Jewish people were suffering from, was for that Yidden are wearing and dressing like the latest. One of the things he mamish fought for was that the clothing should be closed right over left. That you shouldn't close. So Hasidic garbs, for example, I get my shirts in Baruch purposely because there are places where you can get shirts that they're called Hasidic shirts, where they make the shirts that you can close the shirts right on top of left, not left on top of right. And he argued, and he would say that when you wear left, the Rebbe also tells people to see $1 or something. The Rebbe says you shouldn't have it that way. You should have it the other way, because when you have right on top of left, you're strengthening kindness over judgment. And Levushim was very, very strong by him. So I read in there's a sefer where letters where he writes to Hungary, where Bechlal over there is complaining very much that they dress too modern. In addition to that, he's complaining that the tzitzis that they're wearing is tiny tzitzis. They're not wearing taleisim ketanim like the shear is. They're not being yotzei the mitzvah. And he's writing a very strong letter to one of the rabbanim there that they have to fix in Hungary. They have to start wearing tzitzis the way you're supposed to. So once there was a yid who came to Riminov, and this guy was a Hungarian Jew. He stayed. The guy said he wanted to go into the Rebbe. He came into, and when he came into him, the Mendel asked him, "Where's your tzitzis?" He says, "I have tzitzis." The Mendel says, "No, I want to see your tzitzis." He says, "No, he came with tzitzis. He came with the Rebbe. I want to see a talus cut." He opened the shirt. And he showed me a little tiny tzitzis still hanging like this. And they were hiding their tzitzis because also one of the reasons they didn't want to be public. They didn't want to be looked too Jewish outside because they felt that was not good for business. It wasn't good in general. They would be more accepted if they would kind of look less. So Mendel starts telling him that no, you have to wear the tzitzis and you have to get it normal. That's not the right shear, and you have to wear full tzitzis. And the person was saying, yeah, but I think this is harming in business. And that's the opposite. And he said, I'll tell you 2 stories that I have with tzitzis. I'm telling the story on purposely because we know now that all the soldiers in Israel are wearing tzitzis. And they're wearing kosher tzitzis. And one of the paydas that he had, the Mendel of Riminov, was that if the tzitzis, if one of the pieces, one of the strands tears, and it's not this, you should have right away replaced the tzitzis. In other words, we know the halacha, you can get away with more than one that is less than the shear, but he was very makbid, that even if one of them is cut off, the tzitzis has to be perfect. So one time, he related as follows, that when he was traveling still in his young days, and he would travel to Melaveh Malka, he was walking through, he had to go by foot because he didn't have money to pay, and he was going through a wilderness, And there were these chevra called the Haidmanchakets. I forgot, something like that. And these were basically tribal people that lived out. They were barbaric people. They would attack people. They were hiding in various and whatever. And they would gangsters. And if you would only fall into their hands, you'd be in big trouble. And most people were scared to travel in dangerous places where they're known to be so they would go in groups. If they were groups, they were safe. Well, they had security with them, whatever. They had no choice. He traveled alone. And one time, as he's there, he suddenly 3 or 4 chevra coming out of the bushes, and they're going closer to him, and he's weak, and he can't fight, and he can't run, and he realizes they're closing in. And he knew he's finished because he's never going to. So he says, well, what did I do? I grabbed my 2 front tzitzis, and I waved them like this. I had Ahin in front of them, and they ran for their lives. That was one story that he related. The second story he related at one time, he joined the caravan going, I don't know if it was there. I think the story was, again, he was going, I don't know if he was going to Luzansk, but basically he was traveling, and there was a very, very narrow road that was going in a place where basically the road was so narrow. I love going on these roads with my wife. I get a kick out of it. She's not here now, I can tell. I love going on these roads with my wife because I get a kick out of the fact that she yells at me that I'm going too close to the cliff. You ever go on these high mountain roads where the road ends and now you're just on the dirt road and you're on the side of a cliff? I love it. And I get over the head. And then she tells me, don't look over there, look on where you're driving. I'm always looking, I want to see the scenery. In any case, so this was one of these roads. And it was going uphill. And what happens is a nobleman, a wagon was coming down the other side. And there's no passing for two. But the way these noblemen were in those days, they couldn't kill us. So if they came running down with four good horses and they're zooming down this thing and someone is trying to trudge up this old rickety wagon, basically, they didn't care if you had to just, fall off the cliff. But they're going to go, they're going to crash, they're going to knock you over. And this is what they were coming down. There was nowhere to go. There was no... And he says it was very frightening. And the guys were coming right at them. And I said, I have no data. So he stood up quickly, and I grabbed my 2 tzitzis. And I went like this in front of him. Suddenly, the guy yelled, and he came to a screeching halt. And they stopped. And the guy told his servants they should get down, take the horses, put it on the other side. They took the horses around, hitched it on the other side, and they went back, and they basically took their horses the other way back up the mountain. He says, and then they continued up. He says, son, you should know. He says, tzitzis, really. So Hashem, this story should help that the soldiers that have their tzitzis should wave their tzitzis and take care, or a Mendel should wave the tzitzis for them, in front of them, and take care of business. Chai. Giant sounding things. Tell what the story happened. Person who needed to marry off his daughters and needed money to pay for the dowries. No dowry, no shidduch. A lot of girls would get older, so no shidduch because the parents couldn't afford the dowry. So a person came and he asked Rebbe, he needs a bracha. He needs a bracha for to marry his daughters. Without money, he needs a bracha. So Mendel told him that he should buy the lottery. He should buy a lottery ticket. Now, this was a type of lottery which they didn't play. Recently, a couple of years ago, they added the power. They do it 3 times a week, so they won. This was a lottery that they played only once every few months. It wasn't like a lottery. So he told him to buy. Anyways, the guy comes home and he says to his wife, the Rebbe said to buy a lottery. So they bought a lottery ticket. But problem was that the lottery was not going to be, it would be win. Let's say they win, but it would be in a couple of months from now. And meanwhile, the girls are sitting at home and they need to start doing something. They can't move. Anyway, so she tells her husband, you need to go back to the Rebbe and tell him this is not a good plan because, every day that's going by, there's a problem. Go back. Anyway, she made him crazy. He didn't want to go, but she made him crazy. So he decided he's going back. So he's traveling back. On the way, he stays in an inn. And there was a nobleman living in this inn, also staying in the inn. In the president's suite, there was a nobleman. The guy had a dream. In the dream, the nobleman dreams that there is a Jew in this inn who has a lottery ticket. That is the winning ticket. That's he dreams. So he wakes up from his dream. And he goes down from bed. He thought it's a silly dream. But in the morning, he's there by breakfast, It's the hotels where you get breakfast comes along with the free breakfast. So he's there and he's taking himself from the hash browns. He's filling up his plate. And there he stands, there's a Jew over there. So he says, hi there, good morning. So he says, I had this weird dream. He says, wow. And I said, I had a dream that there's a Jew over here who's got a winning lottery ticket. He says, I do have a lottery ticket. He says, yeah, you really have a lottery ticket? Yeah, I bought a ticket. He says, wow, that's interesting. He says, you should know, I also like to play the lottery. I also have a ticket. Maybe we switch car. We switch. So he says to him, no, I want my ticket. He says, no, but I want yours. So he said, but I don't want to sell it. He says, no, but I'm going to switch. I'm going to add on more for your ticket. And it was back and forth. He says, I bought a ticket because my rabbi, so-and-so, told me to buy the ticket. And because I told him, he says, I can't switch because my ticket is definitely the winning ticket. He says, okay, that's why I want it. Anyways, so he gave him, he says, he gave him like 10,000, whatever. So it was a nice, I should say, money in advance. He switched the ticket for him. That was it. Later, he traveled to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe said, see, because of you, I had to run around to be matriach the Baal HaChalomis, the Sarah on the dreams. You know, I had work to do to get the minister of the dreams to come. He said, the word was, Sufadrei Nakop, that's what he said. I had to be matriach the Baal HaChalomis to go and be Fadrei Nakop to this body.
Who wanted the
The guy, at least he got his money that he needed for the dowry. He needed money in advance. And the truth is, I didn't even understand. I couldn't figure out the end of the story. That's the truth. I was puzzled because the story was saying that he bought the. There's a lot of it there. Maybe we'll read it we'll be able to figure out. Maybe in the end, this guy won also place. At the end.
I heard this story. I realized that we knew you were going to change it. So the other guy got that it was
Could be. I'm not sure.
I'm a fan, Rabbi. Amen.
Mendel, Yosef, seiner Melech Yosef, alle Jeden sind bringen Brachos, für alle Jeden.
Amen.
Only good things.
Amen.
So is yours?
It's no, it's quite a shir. No, here, it's the day after like Lamed Al Yomer. Talk about by his tissue, just to say, talk about, I always told stories about it. I didn't tell by his meal with the Tzadikim when it all comes, they had there was such a fear and a dread that literally there was silence. You can hear the candles burning. That's what it was. You can hear the sounds of the candles. There were hundreds of people, but there was such a yira. The room was a yira sarayim. From him, there was like a pachat noida. So it was,
Wow.
very high. Very high. In the war against, back to what I wanted to say is when Napoleon was, him, the Chayzer from Lublin and the Kajnitz Magid, all three together decided that they're going to push for Mashiach. There were three tzadikim who decided to advance Mashiach's coming, no matter whatever it would take. And the three of them got together spiritually to fight that even if it's not time for Mashiach to come, the redemption has to happen. And that year, all these three tzaddikim passed away. The Chayzer from Lublin fell out of a window on Sukkot. The Kajnitz, what happened was the Kajnitz Magid passed away Erev Sukkot. He was the first one to pass away. Passed away Erev Sukkot before Sukkot. The Chayzer from Lublin was doing whatever he was doing to do up there, and they say that he was grabbed by some forces that are. They told him to watch it. The Chayzer said, "Watch me, watch me, watch me," and something happened that he was alone. And the next thing you knew, they found him with broken bones
All the way down.
outside somewhere. He was like, somehow he was thrown out of the window, whoever it was. So there were some dark forces that kind of got in the way. And he's dead, but he stayed alive for almost a year. He passed away on Tisha B'Av.
Yeah.
But he complained. He said, how come no one told me that the Kajnitz Magid passed away? Because they didn't tell him, even though he was the seer of Lublin, but I guess they hid it something. He said, had he known, he wouldn't have been doing what he was doing some Torah then. And he was getting pretty close to like activate certain things. And Mendel of Riminov passed away before him. Mendel of Riminov passed away that year on Lag BaOmer. So they all three passed on that year. Tav Kuf Ayin Hay was a very, very big blow for the Chassidim because they managed the top of the Chassidim in Poland all passed away. He during the war between Russia and Napoleon, as I mentioned earlier, he was routing for Napoleon. He felt that Napoleon's win is gonna lead the Jewish people to the redemption. And he even says, like similar to Shimon HaTzadik, that Alexander the Great said that he sees the Malach looking like him. It says Napoleon would they say had Mendel of Riminov's kind of as his. Saw him in his battles. He felt that he has a tzaddik rooting for him. And again, the Alter Rebbe was his arch enemy. So one time it was before Pesach. Now he had a student, the Rabshitzer. My family comes from Hasidim, who are students come from the Rabshitz dynasty. So Naftali Rabshitz was a student of this Mendel of Riminov. So Naftali Rabshitz, however, sided with the Alter. He was a huge Makubal Tzadikim, and he felt strongly that it was a mistake that Mendel of Riminov was making, and that the Tsar has to win, Napoleon has to lose. So what happened was Pesach, before Pesach, and Rabbi Menachem Mendel of Riminov was making matzahs.
You base or you give?
It was right before Pesach, maybe Yud Gimel.
After
Oh, I'm not exactly sure which year this was. Could have been the same. It could have been Yud Beis though. I'm not sure. Not Yud Beis. Ayin Beis. I'm not doubt that he was still alive at this particular story. No, it was before because it was when Napoleon was still being victorious. So he was throwing matzahs in the oven, and Naftali Rabshitz was there, and he heard the Riminov saying every time you put matzahs in, he took you put matzahs in the oven, you throw them in, and then you wait till they get baked, you take them out. Every time he was putting the raw dough in the oven, he was yelling, 20,000 Russian soldiers into the oven. 50,000, and he was knocking out. He was saying 5,000 Russian, and he basically was knocking them out in the battlefield. He was throwing them in the oven. And Naftali Rabshitz suddenly yelled from the back. And Naftali Rabshitz yelled from the back, and he said, Napoleon is Tameh, and a Tameh gets pushed off the Pesach Sheni. Because someone who's Tameh, you're not allowed to do Pesach, you can't do the carbon Pesach, you get to the Pesach Sheni. So because he wanted to be Mevalvel his Machshavas. And by sowing that, he threw him off. Because he was in a state of tzveikus. You can't just do these things unless you're really plugged in. And he literally, because when he said to him that a Tameh gets pushed off the Pesach Sheni, he knocked him off, and the Mendel got very upset. And Naftali Rabshitz got very scared for the Kapedim from his Rebbe. So he escaped and he ran for his life. And he ran to Karznitz. And he was so scared, the Karznitzer was very weak. The Karznitzer Maggid was very, very weak, and he would lay in bed most of the day. Besides, I think when he would go daven or would go to the mikveh, they would take him. So Naftali Rabshitz ran into his room and jumped into the bed of the Karznitzer Maggid. No one would ever dare do. And when the Karznitzer Maggid came back, and he saw him in his bed, he wanted to what in the world are you doing here? And basically, he told him that I'm in big trouble and I need. So he basically saved him. He took away the kapeda, and then Naftali Rabshitz actually convinced the Karznitzer Maggid to side with the Alter Rebbe. Yeah. So there was a switch over there. But the Mendel was saying at that time he was in a lot of pain. He was in tremendous pain when Napoleon was losing. It caused him terrible. He felt like his ability. He felt like his push for Mashiach. He was losing it, and he was crying. And he had he was so upset, and he was saying that blood should flow up to the ankle. From Pristik to Riminov, there should be blood, but Mashiach has to come down. Even if it's going to cost a great loss of Jewish blood at that time, but we have to push it through. He foresaw the Second World War, he foresaw the Holocaust, he foresaw things, and he was trying to get the action then. But it wasn't meant to be. Other tzadikim knew otherwise. And this is what was going on. But this is what the caliber we're talking about of tzadikim, the greatest of the great, pushing for Mashiach. And now that Rebbe told us that Mashiach is here already, first days, and we're asleep. First day when tzadikim worked so hard, and the Rebbe said we should do. In this week's Sikha, the Rebbe says not only do we have the Metzias of Mashiach, the Rebbe said we have the Yizkalus of Mashiach already. Mashiach is already revealed. He's here already. He's revealed already. He's saying hello.
Wow.
Look at the Gesicht.
You say he's here?
Yeah. That's what the Rebbe says. It's 32 years ago. Yeah. What? That's a mullet, yeah, in between.
Rabbi, can I make an announcement?
Yes, for sure. Tomorrow we have the great Friendship Circle Walk, and we're all walking for friendship. Where is it and what time?
It's at Friendship Circle. We're closing down Robertson, 1952 South Robertson, 1:30 to 5:30. And we're also doing a lot for Eretz Yisrael, Unity for Eretz Yisrael. We're doing with time. It's between Sawyer and Guthrie around. We're closing up. 1952 South Robertson. I could send you the flyer.
I have it. You sent it to me. Everybody should join us.
So we're gonna be normally it's a walk really to support the special needs kids, Jewish kids, but here we're doing that and support for Eretz Yisrael.
That's a shame.
Everyone, please come.
Big miracle.
Beautiful.
Big mirrors. Thank you. You should listen.